Hey everyone, welcome back. Now you're probably neck deep in tens or hundreds of different AI tools, but today we're diving into a bit of a hidden gem, in my opinion, which is Google AI Studio. I stumbled upon this tool almost by chance, and I thought to myself, well, where have you been all of my life? um, it's a seriously powerful platform on par or even better than Notebook LM, yet it's flying still a bit under the radar, but I think it could be really helpful on the day-to-day working environment. Let's now have a look together at Google AI Studio and see why it's so interesting. Well, what is Google AI Studio? Think of it as your personal AI playground, a space to experiment, prototype, and even build the foundations of some new app, all without needing a PhD in machine learning. Stick around because I'm going to walk you through AI Studio's key features and show you exactly how this could become your secret weapon for boosting productivity and exploring the cutting edge of AI. All right, so here we are on Google AI Studio. Where do you even begin? And what should you first do? Let's say it feels a little busy, but don't let that intimidate you. Think of it as a well-equipped workshop, lots of tools, but we will focus on the essentials to begin with for today. The most natural place to start is the chat interface. This is your basic prompt area where you can directly interact with Google's powerful Gemini models. You can just type in a question or a request just like you would on any other chatbot. I can even switch between different models and basically test them a little bit. So we have the latest Gemini 2.0, a lighter version, which is even faster. And don't worry, it is still free for a lot of the use cases. And I can also experiment with a thinking model that will most likely generate better outcomes, yet take longer time to answer. But let's first have a look up here in this box. These are system instructions. Think of it as setting the rules of engagement for all your interactions in this particular session. Instead of just asking for a marketing slogan, you can first tell the AI, hey, you are a witty marketing expert specializing in tech startups. Keep your responses concise and engaging using relevant industry jargon. You can basically ask it to format answers in a specific way, and basically a set of like rules that you will not need to repeat all the time. Now, before prompting, let's say in this case, I own a little e-commerce on Shopify and I create little pins or clothing related to the office world, and it's got a new retro kind of theme. Think floppy disks, dial-up internet, vaporware aesthetics. And so I'm adding this to the system instructions so the chat will know that this is what they're tasked to be. Now, before we actually start prompting, let's talk about crafting a prompt effectively. It's fine to prompt the AI to do X or Y or Z, but that's going to take you only so far, and with mediocre results at best. Consider these elements when prompting and crafting a prompt. It's everything about task, context, resources, evaluate, and iterate. Let's begin by talking about task. This is really what you want the AI to do. Try to be as specific as you can here. Anywhere from what is the desired output and format to the specific steps that it should take to actually perform such task. This will work even better if you're using a model that has thinking, because it will be able to break down that request into multiple steps and go through them and execute them and try to really get the green light on each of them. Context is really going to help it to ground that task into, information that it might not have out of the box. Think about it in terms of additional examples you can provide of both good examples to follow and bad examples to avoid, as well as general guidance that you may feel the AI doesn't really have. Like, for example, when you ask it to craft a post for LinkedIn, a lot of times it might not know what is the right format for a LinkedIn post. And then you want to provide additional resources, for example, your own data. So you want it to actually digest your own piece of text or even images. so that it can know what it's actually working on. And then you always want to follow up with evaluations. Let's say after it's done with the first response, you wanted to really ask it to look at results critically and ask it to self-evaluate itself. This is where iteration comes in. Always think about how you can improve your prompts, and so that you end up basically creating your own collection of prompts that work. And these last two steps are always going to be helpful for you to make sure that you're not just creating an endless conversation every time and really kind of wasting a lot of your time in the process as well. Now back to our example. Let's say you want to create a Instagram caption for a new floppy disk pin. A bad prompt might be something like write a floppy disk pin caption, right? So it's probably not gonna help much. Let's give it a try. Yeah, there you have it. It's giving me some good options, which actually is nice, but it's a bit haywire in the sense that I'm not sure it's really understanding my task. And this is because my prompt was very generic. Let's try with a more specific prompt where I can provide all of the attributes that I talked about, at least the first three for now. So let's have a look at the prompt. Write a marketing campaign. Right, this is primarily my task for my new floppy disk animal pin product as an Instagram post caption. I've attached a picture of the pin. This will be the picture that will end up uploading now. And more context, like yet again, this is a late spring collection and has a limited run of 100 items for batch 1. I'm also attaching inspiration of other similar products I like that fit my style. And you will see that in a moment. So this is my pin. I generated it with AI for convenience, but yeah, that's something that I see myself actually working on maybe. Let's now add some inspiration that I found from other shops on Instagram. Here you have my two other examples. This is a ring with a swimming pool, and this one is a kind of Windows XP-esque type of pin. Now let's run this new prompt and see what happens. So now it's taking a bit longer because there is a lot more to digest at this point. But as you can see, it is actually getting a bit better. I can immediately see that it's more specific about the pin itself, the drop, and the 100 of these sweeties, actually, which I think is the right language. And yeah, I think it's quite good already. Let's check out some other options. Beep boop. This one I love, and I think I might end up using if I were to really sell this product, actually. This one is quite short, which is actually quite nice. It's inspired by that Windows XP pin that you saw earlier. And I might actually end up using this one. I really like it. Now let's move on to the right-hand side of Google AI Studio. As you can see here, there is a lot, but I will walk you through each of these options. So the first one is the model. Like I mentioned earlier, you can basically choose between a fast model and a slower model, which will output most likely higher quality responses. Think about this in terms of like, okay, what is that you need? Do you really need the answer to be thorough and maybe help you a little bit as well in terms of achieving a more complex task? In this case, you should pick up the thinking model. But if you don't need that, the flash model will be really enough for most cases. If you need yet more speed, you can actually opt for the light model. It will not have all the quote-unquote knowledge that Gemini 2.0 will have, but it will guarantee you an even faster response. And this can be important in some contexts where, you know, there isn't really a lot of thinking to do and not a lot of creativity. And so this might be really helpful for you. Next, we have the token count. So this is, I think, where Gemini shines the most and offers you a humongous context window, over 1 million in this case. And think about it as the ability to upload perhaps entire books and lots of videos as well, or lots of time of a single video for both audio and video, which is very, very interesting to me for its applications outside of Google AI Studio as well. So yeah, this is quite unique to Gemini, I would to say, but worthwhile exploring, especially if you are trying to do research on a lot of material, for example, as I shown in my notebook LM video, for example. Next is temperature. So this setting will allow you to adjust or have more control over the AI's creativity. Higher temperature means more creative output, but it might cause the AI to hallucinate, especially on things that it might not really know about yet. Think about asking it for a specific molecule compound that is really not well known, or a sneaker that just dropped in 2025. It might just not know that, but it may still make up things for you. Whereas if you set the temperature to 0 or closer to 0, the output will be a lot more predictable, but less creative, right? So your mileage may vary here, and you may want to, in fact, test this a bit more. Let's say generally for evaluation and categorization type of tasks, I tend to lower the temperature. And if I'm writing marketing copy that doesn't really need to be 100% specific, I actually will set up the temperature quite high. Now, structure output, this will be interesting if you're a developer or love to be able to transform this data quickly into another format. And so this is where structure output comes in. You're able to actually create a schema for the type of output you will want. So in this case, it will only generate an array of values. And in this case, it's post description and number of hashtags. Code execution is another powerful feature. You can actually ask the AI to run code snippets, whether it's for, say, calculations or even prototyping small applications. For instance, you could ask it, calculate the compound interest of 10,000 K for 3 years at 5% using Python, and it will do just that. As you can see here, it actually created the code and decided to run it as well, and it also gave me a nicely formatted output. This is pretty cool. Now let's look at function calling. What this allows you to do is to connect the AI to external tools and APIs. Imagine building an AI assistant that can check out the weather, can actually create a calendar appointment, or even book a restaurant table with, say, OpenTable API. Now let's look at one of the last ones, which is grounding with Google search. This allows me to actually tap into Google's own search. And this is fantastic in case I want to check out recent news or trends. And yes, I think this is where really this starts to come together and it becomes a very end-to-end type of platform. Now let's have a look at a really useful tool when building up prompts and improving them. So you can click on compare, and you will be able to actually compare side by side different outputs. Now, the interesting thing here is that you can play with both the models and the system instructions, right? So you can test different versions of your own assistant versus different model to use. Now let's try to actually pit against each other the normal quote-unquote model and the thinking one to just see what is the difference. So now I'll run the same prompt as before with the same images. Let's click on run. So the thinking model will start outlining what are its thoughts. And as you can see, it will really break down what is the task here and all the features and the specifics of the request. And funnily enough, this time the model here was faster. So thinking models are not always much slower. So bear that in mind. But they will, of course, run in additional costs because they do take additional tokens to answer. Whereas, as you can see here, the regular response from the Flash model has a lot less text to begin with. This is because it's not going through that thinking process that alone took almost 8 seconds. Now let's explore other functionalities within Google AI Studio. I can talk to Gemini live, which is really, really fascinating. I can talk to it with my microphone. I can show Gemini different things. Let's say, for example, an object. I have this cap here with a little frog. We will try this in a moment. And I can also share my screen. Let's try talking to Gemini first. Hey, hi, Gemini. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you for asking. How are you doing today?
Pretty good, thanks.
That's good to hear. Is there anything I can help you with today?
Now let's try another option. In this case, show Gemini. Let's now try to give it access to my webcam. What are you seeing?
I see a person wearing a black baseball cap with a small green frog patch on the front. The person is also wearing a patterned shirt. In the background, I see a whiteboard with a ghost drawing on it.
Oh wow, that's actually quite specific. Thank you. And now with the last option, I can share any window or tab from my screen, just like I would with Google Meet, and it will be able to describe to me what it's seeing. And this could be really helpful for just getting a quick update on some other output that's happening on the side, or I might be stuck during coding on some issue and I might ask it to help me fix a bug. Let's say I have a problem in my Python script or JavaScript, and it can help me doing that as well. Another example could be that I have a complex Excel spreadsheet and I could ask it to help me create formulas to, say, do filtering or sorting. And yeah, it's going to be like having a little assistant next to my side, which is really, really fun to think about. But let's now move on to tuning a model. This is really, really interesting, I think, for any business owner where you would want to have a optimized response. Think about this from the perspective of getting specific outputs or specific tone of voice. And you can do so with a fairly friendly user interface. I can upload all the material that I have that I wanted to actually store in the long term, as well as some other details, especially when I want to call out this model from my API, from my code in my app, for example. Next up is the prompt gallery. This is where I think Google did an amazing job at really showing what is the potential of AI Studio. A lot of times people don't necessarily know what they can prompt the AI app with or to which extent and which features they can actually take advantage. And so here you have a few ready to go prompts that I can test already. Let's just say I want to test this shape sequencer, and it's showing me what it can do. In this case, upload an image and ask a question. But there are others where I can actually create specific JSON outputs together with the image, and I think it's really, really fun to play with. The last thing I want to show you is how you can actually bridge even more quickly the gap between Google AI Studio and your own code. So if I go back to my conversation from before, I can actually click on Get Code, and I will have in Python or other languages basically a copy-paste version of this conversation, and I can actually plug that into my app. This is really, really powerful. So there you have it, a quick but complete tour of Google AI Studio. As you can see, this isn't just another chatbot. It's more like a comprehensive toolkit packed with powerful features that I believe can generally help you enhance productivity, maybe foster innovation within your organization, and even help you build the next generation AI-powered app. The fact that it's still somewhat under the radar presents, I think, a real opportunity for those who are willing to explore it and take it for a spin. Whether you're a startup founder or an AI expert looking for a user-friendly tooling, or someone venturing into AI, Google Studio is a platform you absolutely have to check out. Let me know which features you find the most exciting and what kind of applications you can imagine yourself building with it. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.